Last week, I tackled the topic of being too old to enter the trades and give you my thoughts and opinions on that. Today, I'm going to describe to you how I got into the apprenticeship with the union. Now, I'll discuss the application, the testing, and the interview process. And I'll give you some tips and tricks along the way that I believe helped me personally get into the union and get into the apprenticeship. One quick caveat though. Remember that locals are different and their requirements for application. So the best thing you can do is pick up the phone and call and ask about the process and go with what they say. With that being said, I'll give you some background. I was a school teacher for 14 years. It was a great career, but it was time to leave. It was time to make some more money, plus some dynamics in my family were changing, topics I covered in my last video. And I went to school at night during my last year of teaching and got a certification, a Linux admin certification, and got into the cybersecurity field in IT as a support engineer. And that's what I've been doing for the last 4 years. Now, this whole time I've been wanting to get into the trades and use my hands to build and repair and service the infrastructure of our country, essentially. And there were a lot of different trades to do this. So I spent a lot of time really researching what I think sounded interesting and fit my personality and figured that I could do and learn. I looked into ironwork, which I thought was very fascinating. I looked into electrical work, which I thought was very fascinating as well, and many other trades as well. But what I ended up landing on was pipe fitting. So I decided that I was going to pursue trying to get into the pipe fitter apprenticeship through the United Association. So the first thing that I did is I picked up the phone and I called and they gave me the requirements. So for my local, valid driver's license, social security card, and a transcript of your GED or high school diploma. So I gathered all that material, and on the day that I went in to apply, I made sure I was well groomed. I dressed business casual, and I went to the Union Hall and I got there early and I waited in my car and I let other people come in and open the hall. And then once I saw that happen, I got out of my car and I went in. One of the first things I did is I introduced myself, eye contact, handshake, and told them my name and why I was there. And I met a few people. I got the application, I brought my own pen, and I printed legibly on the application, turned it in with my documents, and before I left, someone from the business office came and talked to me and said, hey, they shook my hand and said, thanks for coming in. Just so you know, we're probably gonna get about 400 applications, and we're gonna begin going through the applications and inviting people in for testing sometime early next year. So this is October of 2025. So I said, no problem. And with that being said, what I started doing, and my first tip to you, I started preparing for the math test right away and for my interview right away. Even though none of these were guaranteed to me, I figured it can't hurt to start preparing now, and that's what I did. And I'll go into more detail about that later. So it was about March of 2026, I got a phone call. And notice I said phone call. It wasn't an email and it wasn't a text. It was a good old-fashioned phone call. So if you're someone that screens your calls, I'd recommend just picking up everything. If it's a telemarketer, you can always hang up or whatever, right? So I got the call and they said, congratulations, you have made the minimum requirements. We'd like to have you come in and take a test. This is March of 2026. They scheduled my test for the first week of April. Now, testing. The test is a two-part test. The first part being situational awareness, the second part being basic math. Now with the situational awareness test, it's actually giving you scenarios, workplace scenarios, and how you would handle them. It covers things from safety to, if I remember correctly, like gossip or whatever, that kind of stuff. And what I would recommend to you is use your logic, use your head. What's the safest answer, right? They'll present multiple choices to you. Some of them might seem convincing, but there's a clear, in my opinion, a clear winner of the choices. If you want to prepare for this test, I think OSHA 10, OSHA 30 has safety awareness examinations out there online that you can go through, and some of it's similar to that, so that's something that you can do to prepare. But in my opinion, if you think safety first and think what would make the best work environment, you could use logic to deduce the right answer for that. and get through it no problem. Basic math test is addition, subtraction, division, multiplication of whole numbers, decimals, and fractions. So if you can add big numbers and subtract big numbers, numbers with decimals, multiply numbers with decimals, add and subtract fractions and mixed numbers, you're golden. Now, I didn't think it was a very difficult test, but I definitely prepared for it. I researched these types of problems and I did practice problems. I had to shake some rust off on my division of fractions. So I'm glad I prepared early, because when the test time came in April, I nailed it. At least I felt like I did. I came in, I took the situational awareness test, got through that. And then the math test to me was really simple. And it wasn't because I'm some genius, it's because I prepared. And I finished pretty quickly, like 30 minutes. I got up and I was the first person to leave. So I did second guess myself a little bit. But they told me on the way out, by the end of the month, end of April, you should hear your results. Cool. I went home and I just started studying for the interview, although I've been doing that the whole time. Now, a couple of points on that. Think of your last couple of jobs. Think of a few examples of things you did well and produced that helped the team. Think of a few things that you didn't do so well, that you maybe messed up, and how you recovered from it. And think about a few interpersonal situations at work with coworkers, good and bad, and how you work in a team. So that's what I did. I came up with 4 or 5 examples from each of my jobs, and I had it ready, and I just stuck with those things. I figured that'd be enough. They might even ask you some things about safety at work, things of that nature. So start preparing now for your interview, and you'll be okay. So I got a call at the end of April. They said, congratulations, you passed the test. We'd like to schedule your interview. The interview was set a couple of weeks later, the beginning of May. I went in, dressed business casual, hygiene, all of that. And I was well prepared. I mean, I was ready to go because I've been studying since October, really. And I got there the day of, made eye contact, shook hands with the folks in the hall, and they called me back there, and it was a very easy conversational tone. They weren't hype. This isn't like corporate America, like tons of people breathing down your neck and making you feel pressured. They really just want to get to know you. So if you're well prepared and honest, I think you'll do well at the interview. And that's what I did. On the way out, they said, you'll hear back from us in 2 to 3 weeks. And then a week and a half later, I got a phone call saying, congratulations, you've been accepted. And I was ecstatic. Now, there was a caveat to this. I applied for the pipe fitter apprenticeship. They told me that pipe fitter apprenticeship was full and offered me the commercial plumbing apprenticeship. I know a good thing when I see it. I said, yes, I'll take it. Because really, I want to be a union member. That's the most important part here. I like what they're doing. I believe in what they do in terms of keeping people safe on the job, having representation for the union members, negotiating fair wages and benefits. I just think it's something bigger than the trade that you can be a part of, in addition to the trade. So I really wanted to get into the union. I love the idea of commercial plumbing. That is something I researched as well. I just wasn't prepared for it when they told me that. But I wasn't gonna say no because it's still awesome. So I said yes, and they gave me a start date for a boot camp that's coming up. And moving forward, I will keep you up to date about how that boot camp is going and explain more to you about the process. But the actual apprenticeship begins in July. So what I would say is this: if you're honest and you're prepared, you'll do well in this entire process from beginning to end, from application through interview. In terms of the test, I am creating a document to help you with the math portion of the test. You'll find that link in the description below. Make sure you download it and use it as a launching pad for your studies, because these will mimic some of the actual types of questions you'll get on the test. And I hope that brings you some value as you begin your journey. Again, prepare for the interview now. It can't be too early. And I think these are the things that got me in. Just my mental preparation, my belief in myself, my mathematical preparation, my interview preparation. And so when these times came, when opportunity knocked, I was ready to answer. And that's really the message here, is be prepared, be ready, be honest. And all of this will come through. It'll come through in your testing results. It'll come through in your interview, because the union is looking to hire people of character, people that are prepared, people with strong work ethic. So if you start practicing these things now during this process, I think your chances are pretty strong. So I would encourage all of you to begin studying, make the application, but again, remember to pick up the phone and call and ask and see what their process is. And I just wish you the best of luck on the process. Please comment below about your process,